Some things on Earth just don't make sense, no matter how many PhDs you throw at them. From blood red rain to an entire river that boiled overnight, these aren't myths or urban legends, these are real, verified natural events that defy every explanation science has thrown at them. In this video, we're diving headfirst into the most bizarre, terrifying, and unexplainable natural mysteries ever recorded. And spoiler alert, even the smartest people in the room have no idea what's really going on. One morning in Jodhpur, India, the sky didn't just thunder, it screamed. On December 18th, 2012, residents across the city heard a deafening explosion from the sky. No aircraft, no weather systems, no military activity, just a massive, ear-splitting boom that shook homes and rattled windows. The sound lasted for nearly 5 seconds and was heard over a wide radius. Here's where it gets really creepy. Scientists, meteorologists, and even defense agencies investigated and came up with absolutely nothing. No seismic activity, no sonic booms, no atmospheric anomalies. Some compared the sound to what's heard before meteor impacts, except no impact was ever found. To this day, no one knows what caused the Jodhpur boom. There's a river deep in the Amazon that literally boils alive anything that falls in it. And it shouldn't exist. Located in the Peruvian rainforest, the Timpishka, or Boiling River, reaches temperatures up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 93 degrees Celsius. That is hot enough to kill small animals instantly. What's bizarre is that boiling rivers are typically found near volcanoes or geothermal hotspots, but this one isn't near either. Andreas Russo, a geophysicist, studied it in 2011 and confirmed there is no volcanic activity to explain the heat. Local legends speak of the river being sacred, protected by spirits. Scientists are still baffled. What heats this water so intensely remains a mystery. Lightning is supposed to strike downward, but in Oklahoma, it decided to go up. On a stormy May evening in 2010, a NASA aircraft studying thunderstorms captured something shocking. Gigantic bolts of lightning shooting upward from the cloud tops into space. These are now known as gigantic jets, but here's the catch. Even after multiple recordings, scientists still can't fully explain how or why these massive lightning bolts leap 50 miles up into the atmosphere. They behave nothing like typical lightning and challenge everything we thought we knew about electrical storms. What if I told you there's a place on Earth where lightning strikes up to 260 nights a year for 10 straight hours a night? That is a lake in Venezuela home to the Catatumbo lightning. This freak weather system produces more than 1 million lightning bolts a year, and it's been going on for centuries. What causes it? Well, that's the puzzle. Scientists have a few theories. Heat, moisture, mountain ranges, but none can explain why it's this intense and this consistent. It's like Earth's own version of a haunted electrical storm. Imagine stepping outside and seeing red rain pouring from the sky. Sounds kind of like a horror movie, right? Well, it actually happened twice. In the Indian state of Kerala, red-colored rain fell for weeks in 2001 and again in 2012. Initial theories ranged from dust storms to algae, but lab tests found something even stranger. Red particles with cell-like structures, but no DNA. That led to a wild theory from some researchers that the particles could be extraterrestrial in origin. While that's still debated, no conclusive natural explanation has ever been agreed on. The skies remain one of the weirdest weather events in modern history. For 10th spot, we have the Mount Lyco rainforest. No one expected to stumble across an entirely uncharted rainforest in the modern world, yet that's exactly what happened in 2012 when a butterfly expert named Dr. Julian Bayliss spotted something unbelievable. A lush, untouched jungle hidden inside a crater high atop a mountain in Mozambique. This was not some ancient explorer's tale, it was confirmed by Google Earth images and later by a team of 28 researchers who braved treacherous cliffs, dense foliage, and dizzying heights to reach the isolated forest known as Mount Lyco. Once there, the mysteries just kept piling up. They identified never-before-seen species, including a brand new butterfly christened in honor of the mountain itself. Even more baffling were the signs of past human presence. Scattered clay pots suggesting that long-lost communities had somehow found their way up this impossible terrain. No one knows who they were or how they got there, leaving scientists with more questions than answers about this remarkable green world in the sky. Next, we are talking about the Mitchell-Hedges crystal skull. Famous for making seasoned archaeologists scratch their heads in disbelief, the Mitchell-Hedges crystal skull, discovered at the ruined Maya city of Lubanton in Belize's steamy rainforest, isn't just an artifact. It's a riddle carved in stone. Unearthed in the 1920s, this flawless human skull was reportedly shaped from a single piece of pure quartz, a feat that seems impossible without advanced tools. Even today, experts armed with modern technology struggle to explain how anyone managed such precision centuries ago. Adding more fuel to the mystery, its backstory is plagued by disputes over who truly found it and when, while whispers of lost civilizations, secret rituals, and supernatural powers swirl around its legend. Scientists have tried scanning, testing, and replicating it, only to admit that the skull's creation and purpose remain unexplainable. In other words, a clear crystal curiosity that refuses to give up its secrets right in the heart of the jungle. Next, we are talking about the giant stone head of the Guatemalan jungle. Few jungle legends leave archaeologists more infuriated than the whispered tale of that colossal stone head supposedly lurking in the Guatemalan rainforest back in the 1950s. There is just one photograph, and it shows a face with strikingly European-like features, nothing like the typical Mesoamerican styles known in that part of the world. What's worse, the carving was allegedly discovered far from any known site, as if whoever made it purposely hid it from prying eyes. Then, before anyone credible could study the mysterious sculpture, guerrilla fighters reportedly blew it to pieces, taking its secrets to the grave. Now all that's left is a single blurry image and a swarm of unanswered questions. Did a forgotten civilization craft it with some lost technique? Was it a hoax? Or did it represent some outsider's influence that never made it into the textbooks? Whatever the truth may be, that vanished stone head remains one of the jungle's most maddening riddles. In our number 7 spot today, we are talking about the case of the missing birds. The sounds of birds once echoed through every corner of Panama's Barrow, Colorado island, with more than 200 bird species nesting above the dense forest floor. Today, a quarter of them are simply gone, and despite decades of research, nobody truly knows why. When the Panama Canal was completed in 1914, Gatan Lake's waters swelled and transformed the landscape, strangling old ecosystems and supposedly clearing out top predators. Without them, ecologists suspected monkeys and coati populations exploded, plundering bird nests and crippling the avian population. That neat little theory, however, didn't hold up under scrutiny. In the 1990s, when ecologist Douglas Robinson set up video surveillance, he caught a surprising culprit red-handed: snakes slithering into nests and devouring eggs. But if snakes alone were doing the damage, why did more than 45 species disappear by 2000? There's some hidden factors at work here, and decades later, researchers are still stumped. Next, we are talking about the hidden German hideout. Few discoveries spark as much speculation as the deserted stone buildings hidden deep in Argentina's remote rainforest, a place where decades-old rumors speak of war criminals escaping justice and entire hideouts awaiting their arrival. Researchers, led by Daniel Chevelzon, recently unearthed 3 mysterious, time-worn structures surrounded by dense vegetation near the Paraguayan border, an area so inaccessible and carefully chosen that it practically screamed secret refuge. Inside, they found old German coins dating back from 1938 1938 to 1944, bits of porcelain marked "Made in Germany," and carvings that hinted at a disturbing past. Historians know that as World War II ended, many high-ranking figures from a defeated European regime fled to South America, supported by a network of underground escape routes called rat lines. The plan, it seems, was to stash leaders in safe havens tucked far from prying eyes, and this hidden compound had all the hallmarks of a last resort bolt hole. What's truly puzzling is that the structures appear to have seen little, if any, use. Instead, they've been left to collapse into the jungle, their presence haunting anyone who dares to question how far desperate men would go to vanish into the green, and why this forgotten fortress still stands as an eerie monument to secrets that history has yet to fully expose. In the remote tundra of Siberia, the ground itself suddenly exploded open, forming massive, perfectly round craters. The first of these sinkholes was discovered in 2014, some as deep as 100 feet. Scientists initially blamed melting permafrost, but that didn't account for the explosive force or the strange shape. Later studies showed the craters were likely caused by underground methane gas igniting under pressure, but no one's fully sure what triggers these massive blasts. One of the craters was even large enough to fit a helicopter. These natural time bombs are still appearing, and they've got researchers deeply concerned. What if you could hear a low, constant hum and no one else could? In the small town of Taos, New Mexico, hundreds of residents report hearing a mysterious humming sound day and night. The problem? No known source can be found. No machines, no underground pipelines, nothing. The phenomenon, nicknamed the Taos hum, has been studied since the early 1990s. Some say it's tinnitus, others blame electromagnetic interference, but the hum is directional, and people report being able to move closer or farther away from it. It's been picked up in other parts of the world too, from the UK to Australia, but there is still no clear explanation. Giant rocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, mysteriously move across the desert floor, leaving trails behind them. Welcome to Racetrack Playa in Death Valley. These sailing stones have baffled scientists for decades. The rocks appear to move entirely on their own, often in different directions as if pushed by an invisible hand. In 2014, researchers finally observed thin ice sheets combined with wind slowly dragging the stones, but not all the stones moved at the same time, and some trails changed direction mid-movement. Something even their model couldn't explain. The mystery isn't entirely solved. Some still believe there's more going on beneath the surface. In 2011, a group of treasure hunters stumbled across something at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, and no one knows what it is. At nearly 200 feet wide, the object looks like a crashed UFO, complete with right angles, symmetrical features, and even what some believe are stairs. It became known as the Baltic Sea Anomaly. When sonar images went viral, scientists rushed to explain it away as a rock formation, but here's the real kicker. Some dive teams reported electronics malfunctioning near the site. Geological surveys come back inconclusive, others argue it's just a glacial rock, but until someone recovers a sample or maps it properly, it remains one of the strangest underwater discoveries ever. In a rare celestial twist, the sun rose 2 days early in Greenland, and no one's quite sure why. On January 13th, 2021, residents were shocked when the sun appeared 48 hours earlier than expected after the polar night. Normally, they don't see the sunrise again until January 15th. Some scientists speculated it might have been due to unusual atmospheric refraction caused by melting ice, others blamed shifting horizons, but even these explanations didn't account for the full effect. Locals described the phenomenon as deeply unsettling, like time had reset itself. Whether it was an optical illusion or something more cosmic, it left scientists digging through models for answers and coming up short. Nature is supposed to follow rules, laws of physics, weather patterns, predictable outcomes, but clearly it doesn't always get the memo. From boiling rivers with no volcanic source to unexplained sounds from the sky, these natural events remind us how little we actually understand about our planet. And maybe, just maybe, some things aren't meant to be understood. At our number 5 spot today, we have the mysterious Amazon rings. Archaeologists still can't wrap their heads around the strange ring-shaped ditches carved deep into the earth of the Amazon long before it grew into the lush jungle we know today. These ancient earthworks predate the rainforest itself, challenging everything we once assumed about when and how this land took shape. Some experts think the rings might have served as defense perimeters, while others suggest they could have been sophisticated irrigation systems or even sacred ceremonial sites. Whatever the truth, these odd formations don't just spark curiosity, they flip the script on the long-held idea that the Amazon was untouched wilderness until Europeans arrived. In our number 4 spot today, we have the lost city of giants in Ecuador. Few discoveries rattle our understanding of the past more than what explorers claimed to find deep in the Ecuadorian jungle a little over a decade ago. Led by native guides, a group of adventurers stumbled upon crumbling ruins that looked like something out of a lost age. Towering stone blocks and what appeared to be a colossal pyramid, roughly 260 feet tall and 260 feet wide, dwarfing even today's skyscraper cranes. Scattered around were impossibly large tools, so oversized that no ordinary human could ever wield them. Local legends have long whispered of giants who once strode through these lands, shaping entire cities as if playing with toy blocks. This find, dubbed the Lost City of Giants, isn't just another wild story. It's a baffling historical detour, leaving researchers scratching their heads over who or what could have built these monuments and why no written records hint at their time on Earth. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Sri Lanka alien meteorite. No one expected a rock dropping into a Sri Lankan jungle to stir up the possibility of life beyond Earth, yet when scientists in the UK analyzed a meteorite that crash-landed there, they found something that upended assumptions. Inside were what looked like fossils and algae, tiny structures that just might point to alien origins. If that's true, it would mean that we're not alone in this universe and that life can hitch rides on cosmic debris, quietly traveling through the void before planting itself on new worlds. Naturally, not everyone is buying it. Skeptics argue that these so-called alien organisms are actually just common freshwater species, probably picked up after the meteorite made landfall. Did Earth's environment contaminate the sample, or are we staring at actual evidence that life can emerge from interstellar darkness? In our number 2 spot today, we have the Maya network discovered under Guatemala. No one expected to lift the veil on an ancient world hidden just beneath the treetops, but in 2018, cutting-edge laser surveys exposed a staggering secret in Guatemala's northern Petén region. More than 60,000 Maya ruins suddenly came into focus. Temples, pyramids, causeways, and residential areas scattered over 810 square miles of dense, leafy rainforest. Even seasoned archaeologists were completely floored. This kind of urban sprawl suggested a once thriving empire of millions, far larger than textbooks had ever hinted. The site lay tantalizingly close to known Maya cities, but these revelations reshaped the map, forcing experts to rethink just how far the Maya had spread and how deeply they influenced their lush homeland. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the man-made rainforest. Not so long ago, ecologists would have bet their reputations that rainforests take eons to form. Yet, on a remote volcanic outpost called Ascension Island, a thriving jungle proved them wrong in record time. In just 150 years, a once barren landscape has given way to a dense green canopy, all thanks to a ragtag assortment of plant seeds dropped off by the British Royal Navy in 1843. Back then, Charles Darwin himself described the island as completely devoid of trees, so seeing it now, alive with towering flora and bustling wildlife, has turned ecological theory on its head. How did these foreign species team up to create something so complex so quickly? Scientists are still scrambling for answers, admitting that this unexpected explosion of life raises big questions about how ecosystems form and adapt. It's a living, breathing reminder that nature can break the rules we thought we knew.
You see, the Grand Canyon was formed over millions of years as the Colorado River cut through the Colorado Plateau, eroding the plateau, which is made up of 3 main rock layer sets, which each contain various layers of sediment within them. Each small layer in the walls of the canyon can be dated, and for the most part it's pretty consistent, until of course the Proterozoic layer suddenly jumps to meet the layer formed from the Tappets sandstone. There is a unconformity between the two, and by that I mean that the Proterozoic layer, also known as the ancient Vishnu schist, dates back to over 1.7 billion years ago, and the next layer of sandstone only dates back to approximately 525 million years ago, meaning that there is a significant amount of rock layers missing from the geological record. And the missing layers represent a major part of Earth's history, so scientists cannot figure out a reason as to why they wouldn't be there. It's inexplicable and a total mystery.
One of the creepiest discoveries made in the Grand Canyon? Bones. Human bones. Something that happens pretty often apparently. The amount of deaths that have happened here are almost impossible to count, let alone solve all of these cases. There have been tons of human remains found in the Grand Canyon that have never been identified. And some have been identified, but the circumstances of their deaths have never been solved. In 2005, the Cold Case Squad was formed in Coconino County with the sole purpose of solving as many of these cases as they could. The members of the unit are all volunteers, having expertise in careers like the FBI, the Department of Public Safety Crime Lab, forensic nursing, crime scene investigations, National Park Service law enforcement, and more. And some of these cases they're looking into go all the way back to 1955.
From bones to no bones, another great mystery of the Grand Canyon, America's greatest canyon, is a distinct lack of not only rock layers but also dinosaur bones. That's right, despite its ancient origins, dinosaur bones have yet to be found within the rocks of the Grand Canyon. While at first this seems like it could possibly be one of the world's greatest mysteries, there is actually an explanation as to why no dinosaur fossils or bones exist in the area. And that is because while the canyon itself likely does not predate the dinosaurs, the rocks in which the canyon was carved from do. In fact, in some instances, the rocks in the canyon are billions of years older than the oldest recorded dinosaurs. So while the lack of dinosaur fossils isn't necessarily unexplainable, it's still pretty interesting.
Next up, we have the story of the cursed blanket. The story goes that in the spring of 1879, a trader named Don McGuire crossed the Colorado River on his way back to Utah. He'd been finishing up a trading trip in northern Arizona. At the ferry, he met a woman named Emma Lee, who was running the ferry. She needed some of McGuire's goods, and in exchange, she offered him a beautiful Navajo blanket. But according to her, the blanket had a bit of a dark history. Emma told him after they made their trade that her late husband's luck had taken a turn for the worse as soon as he got the blanket. Not sure why she'd say this after having just made a trade. Wouldn't really sell me on it, but I guess, a trade's a trade. It was too late. McGuire wasn't superstitious anyway, though, and didn't believe in any kind of curse. But in the end, McGuire would end up writing that the blanket was a, quote, curse to all who possess it. His luck started getting bad. He began chronicling all his bad fortune, writing that he had suffered, quote, 100 calamities. But as soon as he lost the blanket, his bad luck seemed to stop. He ended up digging further into the history of the blanket and discovered it had been woven by a Navajo woman named Mariana, who had made it for a stranger who rode into town that she had fallen in love with. Only her daughter had also fallen in love with the man. The stranger didn't return either of their feelings though, and the daughter ended up dying, according to the tale, of a broken heart. In a form of revenge, Mariana ended up cursing the blanket, and 3 months later, the stranger's horse was found with an empty saddle, and the blanket was found hanging on a tree branch, stained red. In northern Laos, thousands of massive stone jars are scattered across the landscape. Some are the size of a person, others even bigger, just sitting out in the open, spread across hillsides and valleys. Most were carved from solid rock. and could have been there for at least 2,000 years, but nobody really knows why they were made in the first place. One theory is that they were part of ancient burial customs. Human remains and burial objects have been found near some of the jars, which kinda supports that idea. Still, it doesn't fully explain the scale of it all. Why go to that much effort to carve and move hundreds, maybe thousands of these things? And how did people with basic tools manage to haul stones that weigh over 10 tons without leaving any sign of how they did it? The layout doesn't make much sense either. Some jars are grouped close together, others sit completely alone, and a lot of sites haven't even been explored yet, mostly because the land is still dangerous from leftover bombs dropped during the Vietnam War. Until someone finds more evidence, the Plain of Jars remains a mystery. At the top of a mountain in western China, there's a cave with something strange sticking out of the walls. Old rust-colored tubes that look like metal pipes almost. They're also found running down toward a nearby saltwater lake. Thing is though, the area they're in is believed to be around 150,000 years old. That's way before any known civilization had the ability to build anything like this. Tests have shown the pipes are made of iron mixed with other materials, which has led to two main theories. Some scientists say they could be natural, maybe tree roots that turned to stone over time. Others aren't so sure. The pipes are smooth, round, and some are hollow. A few even branch out like a modern plumbing system that doesn't look random. There's never been a sign of people living near the site. No tools, no buildings, nothing that would explain who could have put them there. What do you think? Did these things form naturally, or were they built long before historians thought people were making things like this? In South Africa, deep inside ancient rock formations that are over 3 billion years old, miners started finding these weird little metallic spheres. Some are smooth, others have grooved lines running perfectly around the middle like they were etched with a machine. They're about the size of a golf ball and seem completely out of place for how old the rock is. Geologists say they're probably natural, maybe formed by volcanic activity or some kind of concretion process. That's when minerals and wet dirt or mud slowly gather around something like a shell or a leaf and harden over time, forming a solid lump or ball. But some of these spheres seem to be perfectly balanced, with an even density all the way through, and the lines etched into them look intentional, but they're stuck in rock that predates all known life, more complex than bacteria. There's also debate about what material they're made of. Some reports say a hard metal, others say they're just mineral deposits. That's why they're often thought of as out-of-place artifacts, something that shouldn't exist in the time or place it was found. In the remote highlands of western Bolivia, there's a massive set of perfectly straight lines etched into the ground. They stretch for hundreds of miles over hills, rivers, and valleys. They're called Sajama lines. Nobody knows who made them or how. The lines aren't carved especially deep, but they've lasted for centuries. And given how long they are, you'd think there would be bends or curves in them, but that's not the case. They seem too long and too precise to be random, but there's no sign of wheels or machinery having been involved. Some researchers think they may have had some sort of spiritual purpose, maybe used for connecting sacred places, but we don't have any written records or anything, that's just a theory. Off the coast of Taiwan, a fisherman pulled up something unexpected from the seabed, part of a human-like jawbone. They named it Pengu 1, and when scientists got a look at it, they realized it didn't match any known species of ancient human. The bone was thick, the teeth oversized, clearly built for chewing through pretty tough material. The jaw didn't look like it belonged to Homo sapiens, but it also didn't fully align with Neanderthals either. And it could have been as young as 10,000 years, meaning whatever this mystery species was, it might have been around far longer than anyone would have thought. Well, scientists ran protein analysis on the remains, and it seems that it most likely came from a male Denisovan. Denisovans were an early human species we still know very little about when compared to Neanderthals, for example. Another strange thing, Denisovan fossils have mostly been found in Siberia and Tibet. Taiwan is way outside where they were thought to have lived. So this strange jawbone raised a lot of questions. There's a lot we know about the evolution of the human species, but also quite a bit that's still a mystery.
Next up, we have the fact that the bottom layer of the Grand Canyon, located just below the Proterozoic layer, is made up entirely of metamorphic basement rocks, which are rocks found in the common household basement. Just kidding. They are rocks classified by their igneous intrusions, which means that either magma or lava has either entered and cooled or cooled on top of previously formed rock. This layer of the canyon is referred to as Zoroaster granite. The reason for the existence of the metamorphic rock is the Unexplained volcanic field, which was the source of at least 150 lava flows that poured into the Grand Canyon. Pretty hot stuff.
The story of Robert Spangler is absolutely wild. How this guy got away with everything he did is pretty astonishing. Every woman who ended up marrying this guy mysteriously died. Mysteriously. One of which at the Grand Canyon. So on April 11th, 1993, Robert Spangler walked into a ranger station at the Grand Canyon to report that his wife, Donna Sundling, had fallen to her death. He said that they had paused to take a picture on the trail, and when he turned back, she was gone. Rangers found Sundling's body about 160 feet below the trail. Her death was ruled an accident. Spangler was never formally accused of causing it, well, at least not for a while. But even though there was no way to definitively prove that Spangler was responsible for his wife's death, it was highly suspicious because 15 years prior to this, Spangler had another wife and a family, all of whom were found dead in their suburban Denver home in 1978. Spangler had managed to make it look like his wife had killed their two youngsters before taking her own life. So after his third wife had accidentally fallen to her death, Spangler started contacting his second wife again, Sharon. She ended up moving back into his home in Colorado, and on October 2nd, 1994, Spangler claimed that he'd found Sharon unresponsive in their house next to a bottle of Tylenol. She died later that day, and Spangler just happened to receive a $20,000 payout from Sharon's life insurance policy after her death. In 2000, Spangler was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he ended up confessing to all his crimes, all except for Sharon. He admitted to killing his first family because he wanted a new life, and he pushed his third wife off a cliff because he was unhappy in his marriage. Because apparently divorce doesn't exist. Anyway, in March of 2001, Robert Spangler was sentenced to life in prison for his crimes, but his cancer took him out 5 months later.
Next on our list today, we have the Hydes, or more accurately, the disappearance of Glenn and Bessie Hyde, who went missing in the fall of 1928. The pair were newlyweds, hoping to run the rapids of the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon in Arizona, making Bessie Hyde the first woman to accomplish the feat. Unfortunately, that never happened, because on December 19th of 1928, the couple's boat was found abandoned, floating upright and fully stocked in the river. The pair had been seen and photographed just a month prior to their boat turning up unmanned in the cold water of the canyon. They had been restocking on goods and supplies when Bessie was overheard wondering aloud if she would ever wear pretty shoes again. Well, there is no way of knowing if she ever did, because as far as conclusive evidence goes, the pair was never found. Although many years later, in 1971, a woman claiming to be Bessie Hyde stated that she had killed her husband Glenn in order to escape his tormenting behaviors. While there was some evidence to back up her claim, documents of Glenn's early life, which would have been pretty easily obtainable, and a weapon, the woman's story is widely deemed as just that, a story. The investigation of the Hyde's death led to the discovery of many bodies found within the Grand Canyon, but none of them actually belonged to the Hydes themselves. Theories about the Hyde's disappearance range from people believing them to have drowned in the river to believing that they were chopped apart by tribes living in the canyon. At this point, it's looking like we'll never really know.
Well, how could I not involve a big hairy ape monster on a list of scary discoveries? Yes, even the Grand Canyon is known for a mysterious creature. Arizona has its own version of Bigfoot, known as the Mogollon Monster, or simply the Arizona Bigfoot. Sightings have been reported all throughout the state, but the oldest report dates back to 1903. in the Grand Canyon. The Arizona Republican newspaper came out with a story about a man named I.W. Stevens, who'd had a horrifying encounter with a big, hairy creature near the canyon. He described it as having, quote, long white hair and a matted beard that reached to his knees. It wore no clothing, and upon his talon-like fingers were claws at least 2 inches long. So he'd come across this bizarre creature drinking the BLOOD of 2 cougars, and when the creature spotted him, it threatened him with a club and, quote, screamed the wildest, most unearthly screech.
Next up, we have one of the deadliest airline disasters in American history, which somehow occurred directly over the Grand Canyon and cost the lives of 128 passengers. The freak accident occurred on the morning of June 30th in 1956. Just 1 hour after departing from the Los Angeles International Airport, United Airlines Flight 718 and Trans World Airlines Flight 2 collided in midair above the Grand Canyon. Both pilots had somehow veered off of their designated routes and ended up flying at the exact same altitude in the exact same space at the exact same time. The reasons behind the crash were listed as lack of communication, turbulent weather, and flight rules. However, given the large number of coincidences that led to the accident, the crash of Flight 718 and Flight 2 out of LA hold an air of undeniable mystery.
Finally, we have the Thunderbird, a creature from Native American folklore. Giant birds with 20-foot wingspans, creating lightning storms as they flap their powerful wings. There have been reports of massive-sized birds flying over Arizona, though, especially around the Grand Canyon, some in quite recent years. One of the most famous stories, though, dates back to the late 1800s, when 2 cowboys in Tombstone claimed to have shot down one of these massive birds. The story goes that the cowboys were riding through the desert when they spotted this enormous bird perched on a rocky outcrop. They fired at it, as cowboys do, and eventually they brought the bird down. They managed to transport it back to Tombstone, where it was then displayed in a local shop for everyone to gawk at for a while. Again, that's not the only story. Over the years, many people have reported seeing giant birds in the skies over Arizona. Some describe them as having feathers and resembling oversized condors, while other people have said they've seen what looks more like some sort of prehistoric creature, like a pterodactyl. In 1890, workers digging through a peat bog in Russia's Ural Mountains came across pieces of a giant wooden statue. It was eventually reassembled into a 9-foot-tall figure covered in carvings of shapes, faces, and symbols. It's called the Shigir Idol, and radiocarbon dating shows it's around 11,000 years old, older than the pyramids and older than Stonehenge. The carvings seem to follow a pattern, possibly telling a story or marking some kind of code. Of course, though, no one knows exactly what they mean. Most ancient wooden objects don't survive this long, but the swampy conditions of the bog kept it preserved. So it makes for a rare glimpse into the kind of symbolic thinking people were capable of at that time, way before we thought people were building anything this advanced. And parts of the statue seem to have been added in stages, like it was updated over time. So this is a culture that seemed to have a deeper sense of tradition than we usually think of with early humans. In 1911, miners digging through bat guano in Lovelock Cave in Nevada claimed to discover something that would make for one of the most controversial stories in archaeology. They found giant-sized human remains. Some reports claim the skeletons stood well over 7 feet tall, and that the bones matched up with old Paiute legends about red-haired giants called the Sitka, who were said to be ruthless savages that were eventually driven into the caves and burned alive by the rebelling tribes. Most of the remains haven't survived, and a lot of the original documentation has been lost as well. Some of the bones were supposedly sent to museums but were never put on display. What does still exist are artifacts like oversized sandals, one measuring 15 inches, and skulls that some claim have giant features, like double rows of teeth. This kind of falls into the weird, is it real or just an urban legend kind of category. Mainstream archaeologists say the skeletons, if they actually existed at all, may have just been especially tall, maybe just over 6 feet, which would have seemed giant compared to the average height of the time. But there's still debate because of how much material went missing or was never examined properly. Even now, though, people still go looking for stuff in that cave, hoping to find giant bones hidden away in some nook or cranny in the cave. believe. Personally, I'd love to find out that giant humans used to roam North America, but for now, we'll just have to assume there was some exaggeration going on here. In Western Hungary, archaeologists dug up this massive stash of ancient bronze artifacts. There were over 900 pieces, including weapons, tools, and some weird twisted items that they couldn't really place. The hoard dates back over 3,000 years to the late Bronze Age. Why was it all left there? Well, that's still a mystery. There's no sign of a settlement or a battlefield, but these things were deliberately buried in clusters, and in some cases the metal was bent or broken, which some researchers think could have also been deliberate. That's led to the theory that all this treasure may have been part of a large-scale offering to the gods. It was clear that whoever made these things were pretty good with metal. Without anything written down though, we're left guessing. In 1908, archaeologists digging through a Minoan palace on the island of Crete found a strange clay disc. It's known as the Phaistos disc, and it's about the size of a CD, with symbols stamped into both sides in a spiral pattern. The writing isn't like anything else from the time. It doesn't match any known Minoan scripts, and no one's been able to translate it. What we do know is that the disc was made in around 1700 BCE, and that the symbols weren't etched in by hand, they were stamped. That's not something you usually see until much later in history. It's the only artifact of its kind. No other object has the same writing, at least none that we've found. It's very weird. Some researchers think it might be a hymn or some type of game. Others think it's actually a forgery, but there's no strong evidence either way because it was discovered in a proper dig and it wasn't being sold or promoted, so most experts agree that it is authentic. Still, without more examples of the same script, it's basically impossible to figure out what it says or why it was made. The Shroud of Turin is a linen cloth that some believe wrapped the body of Jesus Christ after his crucifixion, bearing what looks like a faint image of a man's face and body. The big mystery here is how the image was created. Tests have dated the cloth to medieval times, around the 14th century, but the exact way the image formed on the fabric is still unexplained. It's not a painting, and there are no signs of any pigments used. Some researchers think it was created through some kind of intense heat that reacted with the cloth, leaving the ghostly image of a man behind. A few scientists have tried to recreate the thing, but it's been unsuccessful, even with modern technology.
In our number 10 spot, we have the submerged temples of Mahabalipuram. Imagine strolling along the golden sands near India's Palar River, where the whispers of ancient legends seem to float on the sea breeze. According to local lore, 7 magnificent temples once graced this coastline, but 6 were claimed by the ocean's depths long ago. For centuries, these tales remained just that, stories passed down through generations. Then, in 2004, something extraordinary happened. When the Indian Ocean tsunami caused the waters to recede dramatically, astonished onlookers glimpsed submerged structures emerging from the sea, a fleeting reveal of what might be the lost temples of Mahabalipuram. Since that day, archaeologists have been diving into this underwater world, uncovering intricately carved stone remnants that hint at a grand past. But the ocean guards its secrets closely, and the full extent of these submerged ruins is still a captivating mystery. Could there be more waiting to be discovered beneath the waves? In our number 9 spot today, we have the River Wharf's Strid. At first glance, the Strid on England's River Wharf looks like a charming narrow stream, hardly something to be wary of. But beneath its serene surface lies a deadly secret. This innocent-looking stretch is where the river dramatically constricts from a broad, shallow flow into a deep, tight channel. The water's speed increases, creating powerful undercurrents and hidden caverns that have swallowed countless victims over the years. What's chilling is that those who fall in are rarely seen again, and the exact nature of the underwater hazards remains a mystery because it's too dangerous to explore. How can something so peaceful looking be so perilous. This strid serves as a haunting reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that nature often guards its secrets well beneath the surface. In our number 8 spot today, we have the giant catfish of Mekong. Imagine cruising along the majestic Mekong River in Southeast Asia when suddenly you realize that beneath the calm surface swims a creature straight out of legend. Meet the Mekong giant catfish, one of the world's largest freshwater fish. This colossal catfish can grow up to 3 meters long, that's about 10 feet, and it weighs as much as 300 kilograms or 660 pounds. But here's the catch. Despite its enormous size, we know surprisingly little about it. Scientists are baffled by its mysterious behavior, obscure breeding habits, and the secret behind its extraordinary growth. Is it something unique in the river's ecosystem, a genetic quirk, with overfishing and habitat loss pushing this gentle giant toward the brink of extinction? Unlocking its secrets has never been more urgent. So we're back at the Mekong River. Picture yourself in Thailand during a warm October evening, surrounded by the buzz of thousands of spectators. Suddenly, glowing orbs of light, known as the Nega fireballs, begin to rise silently from the water's surface, floating up into the night sky before disappearing. It is a breathtaking sight that blurs the lines between reality and myth. Locals believe these mysterious fireballs are the breath of the Nega, a mythical serpent revered in Buddhist lore. Scientists, on the other hand, are scratching their heads. Theories abound, from combustible gases released by the riverbed to optical illusions, but none have been definitively proven. Is it a natural phenomenon we don't yet fully understand, or is there a touch of magic in the air? Whatever the cause, witnessing the Nega fireballs is an unforgettable experience that leaves you pondering the mysteries our world still holds. In our number 6 spot today, we have the submerged ruins of Lion City. Imagine slipping beneath the tranquil surface of China's Qiandao Lake and descending into a hidden world frozen in time. There lies Xichen, or Lion City, an ancient metropolis built during the Eastern Han Dynasty between 25 and 200 CE. This city wasn't lost to natural disaster or forgotten over millennia. It was intentionally submerged in 1959 to create a hydroelectric dam, forming the man-made Qiandao Lake. What is absolutely fascinating is how remarkably well preserved the city remains underwater. Divers exploring Lion City are treated to a surreal journey through ancient streets and buildings, all beneath 40 meters or about 130 feet of water.
The cenotes in the Yucatan Peninsula were super important to the Maya. These water-filled sinkholes weren't just places to get fresh water, they were seen as gateways to the underworld. For the Maya, they were more than just natural wonders. Guillermo de Anda, a specialist from Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History, said these cenotes were, quote, the main scenario of the myth of creation for the Maya. And these cenotes really are like a hidden world. Above the surface, they look like beautiful spots with crystal clear water, lush vegetation, and massive stalactites. But underwater, these cenotes lead to massive labyrinths of underwater caves, some of which are still mostly unexplored. People practiced rituals here. Offerings, altars, even bones have been discovered deep inside, giving us a look at how crucial these places were to Mayan life. One of the most famous cave systems is Sac Actun. It's the largest underwater cave in the world, believed to connect to other cave systems, possibly making the whole network over 1,000 kilometers or just over 620 miles long. Inside these caves, explorers have found Mayan artifacts, animal remains, and even evidence of human sacrifices. The cenotes and caves of the Yucatan could completely change how we understand the early Maya, with some of the discoveries hinting at settlements and rituals long before the rise of the classic Maya civilization. In the spring of 2017, divers Sam Meacham and Fred Davos squeezed their way through a tight passageway, only 28 inches wide, deep in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. After swimming for half a mile, they finally reached what they couldn't believe was in front of them: a 11,000-year-old ochre mine, untouched and almost perfectly preserved. The site, named La Mina, was a time capsule. There were pits, broken stalactites used as hammers, and even old charcoal from fires. Early humans have been extracting red ochre pigment, which was later used in everything from cave paintings to mortuary rituals. Archaeologist Brandy MacDonald had been studying ochre for years and said this discovery was unlike anything she'd ever seen. The discovery gave the researchers a rare look into how some of the first people in the Americas lived, long before the rise of the Mayan civilization. Scientists also found remains of early humans, most famously the remains of a girl they named Naya, who fell to her death around 13,000 years before. The question was, why had she gone so deep into the caves? As Roberto Junco from Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History stated, what the hell were they going down there for? This wasn't an isolated site. Radiocarbon dating revealed at least 2 other ochre mines in the area dating back between 10,000 and 12,000 years ago. This shows that early humans had a sophisticated knowledge of their environment, with well-planned mining expeditions that lasted thousands of years. It's still a bit of a mystery as to why they went so deep into these caves, but there's a strong possibility that they weren't just used for practical reasons, they may have been spiritual too. The ochre they were mining was obviously important, often used in rituals. Holly Moyes, an expert on cave rituals, talked about how caves in early human history were often seen as sacred spaces, saying caves produced all kinds of good and evil, adding that the deep dark environments were perfect for rituals. For the Maya and other Mesoamerican cultures, ochre was sacred, possibly seen as a way to connect with the underworld. The Hoyo Negro, or Black Hole, is one of the most mysterious underwater caves in Mexico, and for good reason. Found once again in the Yucatan Peninsula, this place is kind of a time capsule. Scientists have discovered some really unexpected treasures here. When divers first explored it, they found an almost perfectly preserved set of remains belonging to a human who would have lived around 13,000 years ago, one of the earliest inhabitants of the Americas. The bones were also found along the remnants of extinct animals like mammoths, giant ground sloths, and saber-toothed tigers. If you're into shipwrecks, the Black Sea is like an underwater treasure chest. In 2015, a team of researchers made one of the most incredible finds in the region, an ancient Greek shipwreck, over 2,000 years old. What's amazing about these shipwrecks is how well preserved they often are. Because the Black Sea has a layer of anoxic, oxygen-free water deep down, anything that sinks below this layer doesn't really rot. It's like a giant underwater freezer. The wrecks, including the famous Greek merchant ship, are almost perfectly preserved. The shipwreck, discovered in 2015, was found at about 2,000 meters, or around 6,561 feet deep, and it was in incredible condition. The hull, the timbers, even the steering mechanism were all there. It was a huge discovery, being that it's so rare to find ancient wrecks in such good shape. This isn't the first or last wreck discovered here. There are dozens more, stretching back to the time of the ancient Greeks and Romans. The biggest question on everyone's mind now is what other surprises are sitting deep in the depths of the Black Sea? Could there be other sunken cities or undiscovered shipwrecks hiding down there? Well, the more researchers dive into the Black Sea, the more they find we've only scratched the surface.
At our number 5 spot today, we have the bottomless Lake of Lost Souls. Now, if you're up for a real adventure, let me take you to the remote and rugged Nahanni River Valley in Canada. A place so shrouded in mystery, it's earned the ominous nickname Valley of the Headless Men. Among its many secrets is a so-called bottomless lake that local legends says swallows anyone who gets too close. Over the years, there have been tales of unexplained disappearances and even headless bodies found along the riverbanks, fueling stories of vengeful spirits or hidden dangers lurking in the wilderness. Is it the treacherous terrain and natural hazards playing tricks on intrepid explorers, or is there something more sinister at work? The area is so remote and difficult to navigate that much of it remains unexplored, keeping its dark mysteries intact. For those fascinated by the unknown, the Nahanni River Valley is both a dream and a dare. In our number 4 spot today, we have the underwater anomalies of Cuba. Imagine you're part of a research team scanning the ocean floor off Cuba's western coast when your sonar equipment picks up something unbelievable. At depths of around 700 meters or 2,300 feet, there appear to be structures that look strikingly like ancient urban ruins, symmetrical stone formations, and even shapes resembling pyramids. It's like stumbling upon a sunken city straight out of legend. Some people are buzzing with excitement, speculating that these could be remnants of a lost civilization that time forgot. Others urge caution, suggesting that Mother Nature might just be playing tricks with natural geological formations that mimic man-made structures. The mystery is thick, and the challenge of exploring at such depths only adds to the intrigue. What could be hiding down there, and what stories might these underwater anomalies tell if we could unlock their secrets? In our number 3 spot today, we have the Lake Michigan Stonehenges. In 2007, while scouring the depths of Lake Michigan for shipwrecks, archaeologists stumbled upon something they never expected: a circle of massive stones eerily similar to England's Stonehenge, sitting quietly beneath the waves. One stone even seems to have carvings that look like a mastodon, hinting that this site could be over 10,000 years old. It's a discovery that flips the script on what we thought we knew about ancient peoples in North America. Who built this underwater stone circle, and why did they go to such lengths? Was it a ceremonial site, an ancient calendar, or something entirely different? The fact that it's submerged adds another layer of mystery. Was it always underwater, or did rising water levels swallow it up over millennia? Researchers are still diving into these questions, no pun intended, but one thing is for sure: the Lake Michigan Stonehenges have turned a lot of heads and sparked imaginations about the hidden chapters of human history lurking just beneath the surface. In our number 2 spot today, we have the vitrified forts along Scottish rivers. Imagine hiking through the misty Scottish Highlands and stumbling upon ancient hill forts whose stones are mysteriously fused together, as if they were melted by some ancient flame. These are the vitrified forts of Scotland, found in various locations, including near rivers like the River Bogie, overlooked by the Tap o' Noth. The walls of these forts have been subjected to such intense heat that the rocks have partially melted and fused, a process known as vitrification. But here's the real kicker: how did people living thousands of years ago achieve temperatures high enough to cause this effect without modern technology? Was it a deliberate architectural technique to strengthen the walls, or perhaps a result of some ancient catastrophe or ritual? Archaeologists are still debating the purpose and method behind this prehistoric high-heat mystery. The vitrified forts remain silent sentinels, holding on to their secrets as tightly as their melted stones cling to each other, leaving us to wonder about the advanced capabilities or desperate circumstances of the people who built them. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the stone spheres of the Dikis Delta. Imagine trekking through the lush rainforests of Costa Rica's Dikis Delta and suddenly coming across hundreds of giant stone spheres scattered across the landscape. These aren't just any rocks, they're nearly perfect spheres, some small enough to hold in your hand, others massive enough to dwarf you at over 2 meters in diameter. Crafted by the ancient Dikis culture between 700 and 1530 CE, these stones have completely baffled archaeologists. How did a civilization without modern tools carve such flawless shapes out of solid stone? And for what purpose? Were they astronomical instruments, symbols of status, or perhaps markers leading to something even more mysterious? Despite decades of study, no one has cracked the code behind these spheres. It's as if the Dikis people left behind a giant puzzle, daring us to piece together their secrets.
Back in May, a live webcam aimed at a cruise ship docked off the coast of Cozumel near Cancun, Mexico, caught this saucer-shaped object zip right across the screen. Now, at first, it's easy to miss, but when the footage is slowed down, you see this shiny, dark metallic disc-looking thing flying way too fast to be a bird, drone, or a bug. Whatever it was, it didn't behave like a normal bug or aircraft. It just shot past the lens. Actually, it moves so fast that it kind of looks like it suddenly appeared appears and then disappears rather than flying off. There's been a rise in UFO sightings lately, especially after 2024. Strange lights have been spotted in the skies over New Jersey and other states. The Pentagon claimed it was all just drones or planes, but if that's the case, why did the House Intelligence Committee have a classified briefing about it? As journalist Nick Pope put it, one question people should be asking is why the House Intelligence Committee briefing was classified. Good question. So here's a weird one out of Indiana. Back in October of 2024, a bunch of glowing orange orbs were caught on camera zipping through the sky near the Grissom Joint Air Reserve Base, just south of Kokomo. There were 6 or more of these things flying in formation, hovering, flickering, and then just vanishing into thin air. People on the ground were totally freaked out. One person filming said, "I think those are UFOs, and I really don't feel comfortable going to sleep tonight." Same. If I saw that. Well, the footage showed the lights darting across the sky, but it wasn't just people on the ground who noticed. One witness checked the Doppler radar, which is normally used by weather stations to track storms, and they noticed a giant rectangular shape with what looked like a vapor shockwave trailing behind it. A vapor shockwave is a trail that forms when something moves super fast through the air, usually at or near the speed of sound. According to them, this thing was approximately 20 miles in length. Like, what even is that? Now, skeptics jumped in. Alejandro Rojas from Enigma Labs said it looked like military flares because the lights lit up and faded in succession, which is apparently how flares behave. He said the telltale signs are the lights being in a row and lighting up and disappearing in succession. Still, this wasn't an isolated event. Just a few months earlier, there were similar UFO reports near military bases in Virginia. The Air Force didn't say a word about it. Alright, so let's talk about the Mosul Orb, this strange metallic sphere that showed up over Iraq in 2016. This thing was caught on camera by a US spy plane while flying over the city of Mosul. The clip is only about 4 seconds long, but it's pretty wild. You see this perfectly round metallic ball cruising through the air. There's no exhaust coming out of it, there's no visible propulsion, and it clearly does not look like your standard drone. The footage was finally released thanks to a Freedom of Information request by independent journalist Dustin Slaughter, and it ended up being shown to the public by Jeremy Corbell. You might know him as the guy behind the Bob Lazar documentary. Corbell called it the, quote, first military filmed image of a UAP over an active conflict zone, and went on to say, quote, origin, capability, operator, and intent have not been determined in relation to this intelligently controlled UFO, end quote. The Pentagon has confirmed there are hundreds of these metal orbs being tracked all over the world, especially in the Middle East and South Asia. Some were spotted hovering, others just flying off at insane speeds. One witness even described a 1,000-foot wide silver disc floating above the 4 corners in the US. Even if only half of this stuff is legit, it's no wonder Corbell said it's time for, quote, full declassification and open scientific analysis. This is a TikToker named Dua Lupe. No surprise why she goes by that name. I mean, my god, the resemblance is uncanny. Anyway, the face that appears in the window behind her does not look like Dua Lipa. Quite the opposite, actually. Now, I could stare at Dua Lipa all day. The face in the window, though, I can barely look at for more than a few seconds without wanting to piss myself. That is pretty nightmarish. Remember when I was a kid, I always had this weird fear, totally, like, not for any reason or anything, that I would look out my window and just see a face suddenly appear and stare into my room at me. It kind of looked like that, so that's a no thank you for me. Just what in the hell is this thing? A man named Alejandro Hernandez from Mexico was driving home one night when he noticed a black shape hovering in the sky. He had no idea what he was seeing, so he decided to stop the car to get a better look, and that's when he pulled out his phone and started recording, because whatever this thing was, it was not normal. Unlike most strange videos of things floating in the sky, this doesn't look like a UFO though. This looks more human-shaped, like someone in a cloak. The way it just silently, smoothly glides through the air, it's just eerie. What do you all think about this one though? Is it genuine? Is it a hoax? Share your thoughts down in the comments. Now, this one's got a real mystery vibe about it. The Cave of the Swimmers, found in Egypt's Sahara Desert, doesn't seem like something that should be on this list. I mean, we are talking about underwater discoveries, but hear me out. Inside this cave, you'll find a series of ancient paintings on the walls, and some of them seem to depict people swimming. Something that doesn't quite add up. Why would ancient cave paintings show people swimming in the middle of the desert? I'm sure the Sahara hasn't always been a desert, but it has been for about 2 to 3 million years. These paintings, though, are only estimated to be around 10,000 years old, but they seem to show people swimming. So could there have once been a river or lake in the area that we just don't know about? The Cave of the Swimmers is famous for these unusual paintings that seem to suggest there was some kind of large body of water right where the desert is now. Lake Titicaca is a massive high-altitude lake between Bolivia and Peru. It's already famous for being one of the highest navigable lakes in the world, but here's where it gets really interesting. There's a submerged temple underneath it. Divers have found ruins in the lake that some believe could be connected to the ancient Tiwanaku civilization, a culture that existed in the Andes before the rise of the Inca. But the thing is, no one really knows how these structures ended up underwater. Some researchers believe that these temples were part of an ancient city, maybe even built to align with the stars or the movements of the sun, which was really important for Andean cultures. The theory is that Lake Titicaca could have been much lower in the far past, and that over time it flooded, swallowing parts of the city. Another thing that's really cool about these remains is that the stones used to build them aren't like any other stones found in the area. Definitely odd. Could this submerged site be part of a larger, forgotten civilization? Divers are still trying to map out just how far this site extends beneath the water. Now this one's really out there. Lake Baikal in Siberia is not only one of the oldest and deepest lakes in the world, but it's also a place where people claim to have found signs of an underwater alien base. The story goes that divers in the lake have reported seeing strange geometric shapes and metallic objects deep underwater. Some have even said they've seen alien beings. Some of these objects allegedly seem a little too perfectly shaped to be natural, and there are rumors that these objects could be remnants of a super advanced civilization, possibly even extraterrestrial, or that there's a currently existing alien base deep under the water. There have been reports of mysterious structures and strange energy fields being detected deep under the lake. Of course, it's said that these reports have been leaked by whistleblowers who have been told to stay quiet. What's really going on here? Are there just odd but natural rock formations, or is there something stranger going on? Lake Baikal is remote and deep enough that it could make for a pretty good place for a group of alien researchers to park their ships. Next up, we have the underwater cave beneath Paganica Bay in Croatia, which is not a recommended dive. The place is known for being incredibly dangerous. 4 people have died here between 2002 and 2015 on 3 separate occasions. In 2002, a diver was found dead 177 feet down in a cave wearing a dive suit but had no mask on. There was also a 12-inch blade sticking out of his chest. Now at first this seemed like a clear-cut case of foul play. 2 suspects were even arrested, but after they looked more into the diver's last dive profile from his dive computer, the cave's dimensions and other forensic evidence, it became clear that he'd likely taken his own life. It seemed that the diver, known only as MK, had gone in alone, got lost, and ran out of oxygen. As he began to drown, he found an air pocket, but knowing he wouldn't have enough air to make it back, he chose to go out quickly rather than suffer a slow, terrifying death from drowning. This series of images were recorded by a webcam at a German research station in Antarctica. The station keeps a camera running to document weather and conditions around the base, and that footage is later stitched into time-lapse videos. On August 10th, 2012, one of those time-lapse clips ended up drawing some attention. In a short stretch of the video, a round blurry object appears in the sky above the station. It's circular, silvery, and seems to hover in place rather than move across the frame. Then, just as suddenly as it appears, it's gone. The object only shows up in a few frames. People slowed the video down, scrubbed through it frame by frame, and debated what they were actually seeing. Some pointed out that the footage is time-lapse, meaning long stretches of time are compressed into seconds, which makes brief appearances like this harder to judge. So, what do you think? Genuine UFO? Were they testing something at the station? Share your thoughts down below. And take a look at this, a massive, almost perfectly rectangular block of ice sitting out in Antarctica. And no, it wasn't carved by humans. The photo you're looking at here was taken by NASA scientist Jeremy Arbeck during an Operation Icebridge flight over the northern Antarctic Peninsula on October 16th, 2018. He saw this strangely sharp-cornered, almost perfectly rectangular iceberg floating nearby, and then he saw another and another. Arbeck spotted a bunch of these tabular bergs bobbing around that day. The term tabular iceberg just means icebergs that are flat and rectangular, almost like a tabletop. One he photographed, later called Tabular B, had such straight edges they almost don't seem natural. But these icebergs form when chunks break off the edges of ice shelves. They're fresh, so the wind and waves haven't rounded them out yet. They look like massive minimalist art pieces though. The mountain you're looking at is way down in the southern Ellsworth Mountains in Antarctica, about 4,150 feet tall. From above, it looks insane, like a perfect Egyptian pyramid was built in the middle of the ice. The photo that made it go viral came out in 2016. The mountain's been there forever, mostly hidden in the snow. People at the nearby Patriot Hill Station have probably seen it without realizing how weird it looks from up above. Over millions of years, ice and snow have slowly worn the rock down. Water fills cracks during the day, freezes at night, expands, and eventually breaks off chunks. Face is eroded at the same rate, leaving a mountain that looks pretty uncannily similar to a pyramid. At least, that's the explanation they want you to believe. That's probably the case. I just really want there to be a secret ancient pyramid out in Antarctica. 2016, a satellite snapped a strange image over Heard Island in the southern Indian Ocean. Clouds over the volcanic island had broken into 10 dark spinning holes, each about 8 miles wide. The gaps twist and curve like tiny whirlpools frozen in the sky. At the heart of it all is Mawson Peak, a 9,000-foot active volcano sitting in the middle of Heard Island. It's small compared to the peaks that usually create these cloud swirls, but somehow it churned out a row of spinning holes that were way more intense and tightly packed than usual. Normally cloud swirls drift out in straight, even lines, but here the holes were twisting and shifting unpredictably. But 10 perfectly spaced dark voids violently spinning above a remote volcanic island? I mean, that is some serious imagery right there. This is a radar image of a very strange mountain range in Antarctica. Under nearly 2,000 feet of ice, there's a mountain range the size of the European Alps in East Antarctica. The Gembertsev Mountains. No one actually saw them until the Soviets discovered them in 1958, but even now, they're completely covered, so we only know what they look like from radar. The range is full of jagged peaks and deep valleys that somehow survived hundreds of millions of years of glaciers and ice sheets. Some of the rocks are 1 billion years old, formed when the supercontinent Rodinia pushed plates together. Later on, shifts in the Earth's crust, like rifting and tectonic movement, basically re-lifted the mountains, keeping them from getting ground flat. During the Antarctica Gamburtsev Province project missions in 2007 to 2009, aircraft flew across East Antarctica, radar mapping every ridge and slope they could find. Scientists found liquid water running through the valleys almost 2 miles beneath the ice, which was crazy. You'd expect everything to be frozen solid down there. They also used seismic scans, basically listening to vibrations passing through the ground to see how the mountains sit underground. These scans showed the mountains' roots plunging all the way down to the Earth's mantle, meaning they're anchored deep in the planet, which explains how they've survived for so long without being completely worn away. So here's one that made the rounds online a while back, and yeah, it's creepy, but also kind of funny in the way that only real reactions can be. A group of nurses were working a night shift when they decided to go check out a floor in their hospital that's rumored to be haunted. Staff and patients had been talking for a while about weird stuff happening up there. They'd hear unexplained noises, they'd see shadows, usual spooky hospital stuff. It was a slow night, so they figured, why don't we just go check it out? Well, they walked into one of the rooms, and then this happens.
Oh, the curtain moved. Yeah, it did, it moved.
So suddenly one of the curtains moves. It slides. There's no one close to it, but it sort of moves as if someone has brushed past it or even like opened it. Now on its own, maybe that's not so crazy, right? But then this happens.
Yeah, it did, it moved. It moved, yes, it did. It did. How did you not see that? Oh, okay.
As soon as that thing falls down, they split back down the hallway and are off of that floor. And understandably. This next clip comes from Sal Guerrero Juega on TikTok. He and some friends are sitting around the table finishing up dinner. He pans the camera across the table before coming to a dead stop by an open doorway where he sees this. Someone, or maybe something, is just sitting in the darkness staring into the doorway. It's impossibly pale, its facial features are blurry, and it has this odd shape to it. I mean, just what is that thing? Is it a statue? It'd be a pretty freaky statue. I'm not sure who would ever want to have that thing sitting on their lawn, but to each their own. I mean, to me, it kind of looks like the pale lady from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So again, that's gonna be a no thanks. This next clip was shared to TikTok by Robert What 47. He was walking through the woods one night when suddenly his dog Ollie started getting agitated, barking at something in the tree line. Robert takes a moment to look around and find out what's spooking his dog, and that's when this happens. So not only was the screeching sound freaky, but notice what looked like glowing orange eyes peeking out from the brush. Takes him a couple moments to collect himself after hearing and seeing that, but then he wisely decides to get the hell out of there. In June of 2009, a man calling himself Peter Bergman checked into the Sligo City Hotel in Ireland. He said he was from Austria and gave a Vienna address, but later, police found that that address didn't exist. Over the next few days, security footage showed him walking around the city carrying a purple plastic bag that he kept disposing of in different places, always out of the camera's view. It looked like he was deliberately trying not to be seen getting rid of whatever was inside the bag. Then on June 16th, his body was found on Ross's Point Beach. He was wearing swimming trunks with underwear over them and a t-shirt tucked in. There was no ID, no wallet, no money. Every label on his clothing had been cut off. Police couldn't find anything to identify him. The autopsy showed he had advanced prostate cancer, bone tumors, and heart disease, but oddly, no medication of any kind was in his system. No one ever came forward to identify him, and no match was ever found for his fingerprints or dental records and DNA. After 5 months, the case was closed, and he was buried in an unmarked grave. To this day, this man is a complete mystery. And finally, we have a wild Bigfoot video from Russia. A group of people were filming near their property after spotting something weird darting through the woods. And when you see what they caught on camera, it's definitely not what you'd expect. Well, now you expect it because I said it's Bigfoot, but they were not expecting to see what they saw. As you can see, something big comes sprinting through the trees, but here's the part that really stands out. The thing isn't stumbling around or moving, like some guy in a costume. It's fast, it's agile, it's leaping across uneven ground like it's done it a million times before. Whether you believe in this piece of footage is a genuine Bigfoot sighting or not, you gotta admit, that's a level of effort you don't often see in stuff like this. And that's why this clip keeps popping up in Sasquatch forums and YouTube breakdowns. I'm not saying I'm a full-on believer, but I can't lie, I've watched this one more than a few times. What exactly are these things? Deep under the Larsen ice shelf, there's a hidden world no one had ever seen before. Researchers drilled roughly 1,640 feet straight down through the ice to reach an underground river, and when they finally dropped a camera into the water, the first thing they noticed was movement. Hundreds of tiny shrimp-like creatures swarming the lens. Craig Stevens, an oceanographer at New Zealand's National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research, said it left the team, quote, jumping up and down for joy. And that, quote, having all those animals swimming around our camera means there's clearly an important ecosystem process happening there, end quote. The cavern was unlike anything they expected. Instead of a smooth, flat roof, the ceiling was jagged and uneven. Stevens described it like a loaf of bread with a bulge at the top and narrow slope at the bottom. And the water below didn't just flow in one direction. It split into 4 or 5 distinct layers, moving in opposite directions. Something that Stevens said, quote, changes our current understanding and models of these environments. These images were captured at a lake in Antarctica. They may not look like much, but let's dive in, shall we? Lake Enigma sits deep under Antarctic ice. You'd think it would be frozen solid, but when researchers drilled through nearly 40 feet of ice, they found a hidden layer of liquid water and, more importantly, life. The team lowered a camera into the lake and saw there were microorganisms covering the bottom. Some looked like spiky things, others like crumpled carpets or tiny tree-like structures over a foot high. It was life where no one was expecting to find it. The water isn't just trapped up there, it's being fed by the nearby amorphous glacier through some kind of underground channel. But this part of Antarctica is brutal. The constant howling winds and non-stop evaporation should have dried up anything like this ages ago. Obviously, that isn't the case though. Among the tiny organisms was, I'll try and pronounce this right, Patascibacteria, which normally don't survive in water with lots of oxygen, meaning they've somehow figured out a completely different way to live. The microbes aren't just floating around aimlessly either. Some of them are forming mats that act like little communities, with some organisms helping each other and others preying on their neighbors. Stuff scientists have never seen in an ice-covered lake before. The lake's giving researchers a chance to see how life adapts under these insane conditions. This is the Weddell Sea Polynya, one of Antarctica's strangest mysteries. It's a massive stretch of open water, hundreds of square miles wide, sitting smack in the middle of sea ice that should be frozen solid in temperatures well below minus 30 degrees Celsius. Most of the southern ocean should be a solid sheet of ice, yet this giant hole keeps reappearing, and sometimes it sticks around for months. Scientists have some idea about why it happens. Sometimes warm water from deep in the ocean rises to the surface, and sometimes really strong winds, as powerful as hurricanes, push the floating ice away from that spot. But even so, scientists still can't predict exactly when this hole will show up. It appeared from 1974 to 76, then basically disappeared for 40 years, then popped back up in 2016 and 17. Nobody knows why it takes these long breaks, but this isn't just a weird-looking hole in the ice. It actually affects the whole planet. When ocean water freezes into ice, the salt doesn't freeze with it. It gets left behind in the water. That makes the water heavier and denser. This heavy water sinks all the way down to the ocean floor and pushes other water out of the way. Kind of like how dropping a stone into a pool makes ripples spread out. But instead of ripples, this creates a massive slow-moving current that travels all around the world's oceans. This sinking water is thought to help produce Antarctic bottom water, which drives the global ocean conveyor belt. This belt carries heat, oxygen, and nutrients everywhere. It can even affect the weather in places thousands of miles away from Antarctica. So, even though it looks like just an opening in the ice, that hole is actually connected to weather patterns and ocean currents across the entire Earth.